Okay. Kathy, can you hear me?
Hang on. Just a second.
I just want to let you know, due to some technical difficulties, you're not going to be able to see anything on Teams, so you're going to have to open your agenda package and follow along that way.
Okay, I'm just printing it now. No worries.
Okay.
Okay.
And when there is a presentation and you want to ask a question, I'm probably not going to see your hand, so if you could just say, "Hey, Wendy, I want to talk."
Okay, no
Okay?
worries. Thank you.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Finance Committee meeting this morning. I just want to let you know that Councillor Moore will be joining us on Teams. I want to bring your attention that we are meeting and working today in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq. And we'll move along. Are there any announcements, acknowledgements, or recognitions? Councillor DeLong.
Thank you. Good morning. I just want to congratulate the Mahone Island Conservation Association for their successful 19th fundraising gala dinner, at which they raised $70,000. They used these funds to fund their activities in partnering to acquire islands and shorelines for conservation and their public mooring program. To date, they have 26 registered public moorings. They've been very popular and received many positive comments.
Give them our congratulations. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
We'll move on to public input. Public input is one of several opportunities for the public to engage with council. Residents are welcome to use the public input portion of the meeting to share their thoughts with the council on municipal topics that are important to them. We ask that all statements be respectful of other members of the public, staff, and council. We ask that you provide your name and civic address. If you have a question or concern that you would like to have addressed, then we ask that you also provide your email address so that we may contact you regarding your question or comment. The chair will respond to questions that can be easily answered. It is the discretion of the chair to make this determination. If your question or concern cannot be answered by the chair, then it will be handled as follows. We will email you with an answer to your question or a response to your concern. We may also contact you to get additional information or further clarification on the matter to assist us in a response. We will require that you provide your email address so that we may respond to your issue. We will provide a summary of answers and responses at a future council meeting under business arising from the minutes, and this will form part of a public record. In this way, we will provide the answers or responses to not only the resident that brought them to our attention, but to all residents of Modo. The residents that asked the question or brought forward the concern will be advised when their matter is being addressed at council. Statements, questions related to personal or operations can be emailed to the Chief Administration Officer, Tom McEwen. There are 15 minutes allocated for public input today, which are shared between speakers. Is there anyone here for public input? Okay, you'll have the whole 15 minutes. So you can come up to the podium. You know that it can be raised or lowered. And make sure that you tell us who you are, Andrew. Thank you.
I can't hear him.
That happened the last time I was up here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Andrew, could you restate your
Yeah, I
name and
will.
where you're from? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Andrew Himmelman, District 4. I live in Newcombville, and I operate a business in Wildville. Given some time here for everyone to get into the swing of things, get all their training, and, congratulations on the new council. I didn't do that formally last time. But I just want to remind everyone that what happens in this building, I think, has some weight in the public and how people go about their day-to-day lives. I've got some things here. Some of it's on finance, mostly in the big picture of things. Others is some things that hit or struck a nerve from last year. I just want to remind everyone, excuse me, that what you comment publicly does actually mean something. Over the past couple of days, there were a few posts made around the UF tariffs that, you know, everyone's worried about. Some of those posts had a certain political tinge or was opinionated against a current sitting USA president. Now, I struggle with these social media posts or opinions because our community reads them and they follow the leader. When any comment is made, including negative ones, it promotes more negative attitude and hate when that is the exact thing that you claim that you want to stand against. Now, me walking in this morning, there's a sign on the door saying about hate and how people are scared to live in Lunenburg County. And I think everyone in here just needs to, you know, remember there's two sides to every story, or even three sides to every story. So when a post gets made on a tariff, let's say, and 3 days later it actually changes, I don't think anyone in here has anything to do with international trade agreements or the power or weight to do anything like that. And I think, you know, some people just have to step back and, you know, I will applaud when I can. And Ms. DeLong, I noticed that there was no comment on her official page on the subject, which, you know, I feel that was, you know, not too bad. No, I'm saying congratulate. Anyways, making these posts about federal issues and putting your personal opinion on it is a little bit troubling. I don't think anyone has enough firsthand knowledge on federal issues or international trade in this building. I've been bringing up about purchasing local on many occasions, and it shouldn't take an international issue to kickstart this idea. I would like to share something that took place last year, actually a couple years ago, but it just shows and proves that committees actually have weight behind them. And these personal opinions that get posted online that become fact, you know, sometimes they're not fact, and actually they come to light that they weren't real or weren't factual at all. Now, one thing that I want to talk about is a fire service committee that put forward a motion to write to our Premier and Dr. Strang about vaccinating 26,000 volunteer firefighters across this province. You know, I don't think there's any doctor in this facility, and not one person on that committee was a doctor. So, you know, the saving grace in that situation is that the provincial government came back and rejected Modal's response officially, which I FOI-popped, and that's available, as many people know. So, you know, stuff that takes place in here does have weight. It affects multiple people, and, you know, we need to be a strong community, and that not just on one side or the other side. We've got to work together. So what you say, do, and vote on in here can have serious repercussions and consequences. And I ask that you listen to all citizens, and you look at every side and listen to everyone's opinions. We as a country have never been more divided, and it's getting worse every day. Last year, I was laughed at and mocked by a few in this building, and some are still here today. I was laughed at because I continue to this day to talk about the United Nations running this municipal government. The purpose of municipal government, which was created in 1906 in Nova Scotia, is stated many places, including the MGA. It does not list NGOs or subcommittees of the United Nations. In 1994, the United Nations Municipal Primer was wrote, and with this following statement. The primer explains the relevance of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. The primer is not intended to be prescriptive, but rather to demonstrate a range of options available to local governments to promote sustainable development practices. It recognizes that environmental, economic, and social circumstances and jurisdictions vary between local governments. Strategic actions that may be imperative for one local may be either unnecessary, inappropriate, or unfeasible for another. The Municipal Green Fund is also a primer, as stated on their website, to make elected officials' decisions easier. That's how it's described. It's a pre-planned out documented, presented to you, and trickled down from the United Nations. You can disagree, laugh, and even mock me, but when you look at these historical paths which have led us here today, what I am saying is in fact truthful. You have now publicly been notified to do your research and not be liable for some of these directions you get steered in. If I can wish anything for this new council to do, it is to do your research on ICLEI and PCP and how those global ideas are being put upon your desks via NSFM and FCM. And don't, if you've got a logo for ICLEI in your climate strategy and it's in an agenda, just don't delete it off of the agenda for next week, thinking that it's not a thing, which happened in November. There are municipalities in Canada that have started to withdraw from these funding programs because they do not have the community's best interest in mind and are unfeasible to ask for more tax dollars for the results. Even the Royal Bank of Canada, TD Bank, BMO, they've all decided to leave the Net Zero and Global Climate Change Alliance. Modal seems to be full steam ahead on a lot of these things, when the rest of the world is in the process of dropping these programs because of legal consequences and challenges that are coming to light. I love the fact that Modal has talked about using a lens. I would like to see Modal use a lens to reduce the tax rate and cancel some of these programs suggested and not mandated by others that ultimately are over in Geneva. Stay focused on making this community stronger, safer, and the most affordable place to live in Nova Scotia. The community is struggling. They're struggling mostly due to finances, which this meeting is about today. I believe the tax rate can actually be lowered with scrapping some of these programs that have been pushed upon us by FCM and NSFM. So hopefully you lower everyone's tax rates and not just a few. And definitely do not use the excuse of one person would be saving more than the other, which has been used in the past. We are all in this together. All my info is cited either from NSFM, which is right here, the Municipal Primer of the United Nations, which was drafted and wrote and presented in a conference in 1994, and ICLEI is a thing, PCP is a thing, modal is involved. October of 2019, the previous mayor introduced that we are in a climate emergency, and in that document that was posted by Modal, it says we're part of ICLEI, and it says we're part of PCP. So I know there's been community members that are asking and have asked about this, and they have been told otherwise. I hope as a community we can all work together here and create the best place in Nova Scotia that we can. Historically, we've been here a long time. And, you know, I think we just need to be kind. And, you know, I think everyone in here is going to do a great job on their next term. So with that being said, thank you for your time, and be kind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew, for your input and for your concern and for your voice. And also, I want to remind you that everyone, that our public engagement website, engage.modal.ca, has information on upcoming open houses, which we have quite a few coming up, workshops, and other events where you can share your thoughts and have your questions answered on various topics. Please make sure that you have recorded your information there. Andrew, did you record your information? Thank you. If you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Oh, there's no paper there? Thank you, Andrew. Today, we do have some issues with our tech equipment, and so presentations, you will be able to hear them if you're online watching, but you're not going to be able to actually see the presentations. But if you click on the link before your live feed, you will be directed to the agenda material, so you will be able to follow along with that way. Do we have any changes to our agenda today? No. Could we have someone approve the agenda as circulated? Councillor Burns, can we have a seconder? Councillor Hubley. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion's been carried. Approval of the minutes. Are there any changes that need to be made to the minutes of December the 3rd that was circulated? Seeing none, I approve the minutes as they have been circulated. Is there any business arising from those minutes? All right. So we're going to be doing some skipping around today because we do have an in-camera meeting at 10:15. So we're going to start right away with a staff report from Region 6 Waste Management, Christina McClare. And so I'm going to turn the time over to you, Christine.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me in. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Just give me a moment here. I will share my screen. And okay, so can everyone see that?
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll move through this quite quickly. I had sent along a number of documents, but mainly a presentation here that just kind of hits the high points, and then I'll open it up for questions. There were a number of supporting documents that were sent along, a copy of the full budget report, a letter to the CAO, as well as a brief activity summary from last year. So thank you again for inviting me in. We're here to present our budget and the total amount that we're seeking for approval for this year, $846,045. So what does that mean to Modal is essentially it breaks down to a cost of about $1.41 per person, and the expected funding coming back is $7.76. So a pretty good return investment of a 141 to get 776 back. And we tend to budget on the conservative side to make sure that we're not promising what we can't deliver. And when illustrated from last year, the return was considerably larger than what was estimated. So that is the hope for this year as well. Good. So our revenue, where does it come from? So we have a number of stewardship and incentive programs. So that brings in about 58% of our funding. Contracts and service agreements, and those are with Divert Nova Scotia. So that's for coordinator agreement, education, and enforcement funding. So that makes up 26% of the money coming in, and the remainder is municipal contributions of 16%, which makes up the shortfall between the other two components. So 16% is being asked of our municipal partners. So our expenses, mainly it's the payments of the funds that we receive through Region 6 that are paid back to our units. So we've got payments of 68% of our total budget is payments made back to the units. And then we've got 14% of the expenses are for education. So that being staff and some of our programs, our waste app. And then on operations side, again, that's staff, our office space, some of our other expenses. Okay, so the budget, again, just a brief summary of what our revenue and our expenses. So rather than in pie charts, just listed out for you. And some details on the revenue side. And we've got, I would like to draw your attention to sort of mid-page dairy stewardship. We've got a decrease. Last year's anticipated funding was 90,000, and this year that funding has dropped to 53,000. So I would like to bring that to the attention of the committee, in that some of the municipal units, mainly those through the Queens recycling facility, they had some operational issues and stockpiled material. So material was not marketed during the reporting period. So for those affected municipal units, they will have very few dairy credits available to them. So that does not impact anything to do with Modal, MJSB, any of the other units that don't take material to the Queens facility. So while it is a decrease in funding, it will not affect you folks. So on the expenses side, mainly we're looking at salaries and benefits as being a large component. Our administration host, West Hants, hosts our financials, and for that, there's a service fee. So office rental, education travel, R6 recycles coming in at 13,500. So just continuing, carrying on payments to the units. So while it's an expense to Region 6, it's a revenue item for you folks. So contracts are listed out there in the anticipated total amount of 572,425. So we are hoping that the diversion credits will be larger than that. But again, this, we only want to present what we can deliver. And so the shortfall between the revenue that we bring in breaks down to municipal unit, and it's based on population. So we use the actual census year 2021. So based on that population per unit, the total expenses of 129,858 are divided out between those municipal units. So I just want to also draw attention that we had a surplus from last year, and that surplus from last year was applied in order to decrease the amount being asked of our municipal units. So that summarizes just what I wanted to touch base on. So if there are any questions, I would open up the floor.
Are there any, Councillor Brooks?
Good morning, Ms. McClure. Could you talk to me a little bit about the education component and give me some sense of who is doing that, what that is, and what the focus of that goal is, please?
Absolutely. We have a regional educator, Angela Taylor, and her time is dedicated to educational efforts throughout the region. In some cases, she's supplementing on the staff that might already be there, or for municipal units that do not have an educator, she will do those duties. So her summary of her education is anywhere where we can get to the public in the way of public meetings, public spaces, community groups, then moving into schools, which is a large component. We are strong supporters of Educate the Youth, and that will be put us on the right track. So she's presenting to every school. If she's not invited in, she will elicit for presentations, and we've got a great success rate of working with all of our schools throughout Region 6. So education for businesses, spot checks or audits are done on many of the businesses throughout Region 6 at the direction of the municipal staff, kind of pointing us in a direction. So it might be fast food restaurants would be a focus. So then Angela would just cold call, drop into the business, kind of to have a look at what's in the garbage, how they're doing, as well as offer any kind of solutions, staff training, signage. We've got sticker signs for containers. So that in any area that we can get into to share our educational message, as well as all of our social media. We're quite active on social media outreach to members of the public. So Councillor, I'm not sure, did that answer your question?
A little bit. I guess you didn't really talk too much about what she's actually educating people on. So I know that there's been a lot of focus in recent years about recycling, for example. And I know from someone who goes to the dump and is pretty intimate with that place, most of that recycling goes into landfill. So I'm curious about the dollars we're spending at the moment to educate people about some things that may or may not be accurate. So I'm concerned about that from grade school right on up through to the constituents in our community. So I understand this is a position, one more position we need to fill. I'm not sure what the outcomes are, if they're measurable. Has this individual ever gone into a restaurant and made recommendations to a major fast food restaurant that they've taken those suggestions and made changes?
Absolutely. A fairly recent example being some of the Tim Hortons stores in the Bridgewater area. So having gone in, done some staff training, when there were issues that were presented. So the owner had concerns that some of the corporate messaging that was coming through, that they were being instructed to throw out eggshells. That eggshells went in the garbage according to the corporate materials, and the owner knew that that was not what should be happening. So she was able to go in and kind of identify and work within their prescribed methods in order to find a solution to continue diverting eggshells while still keeping them in compliance with their corporate structure. So everything from going to schools in instructing, the students in that we want to make sure that we're, cleaning our materials, that everything should be recycled. It needs to go into the recycling bins as well as compost. So I have some concern and would love to further discuss, Councillor, on the amount of recycling going to landfill. It is a common belief that majority of our recycling is going straight into landfill, and I can assure you that that is not the case. We've got lots of tonnage of material that is being recycled and put back out into the marketplace. But yes, of course, there are some materials that fall off of the line at the end of it. Dirty peanut butter jars and things like that they just can't clean up at the recycling facility. So Angela is educating, trying to dispel some of those beliefs that folks have, that they think that it all goes in one hole in the ground because one truck arrives at their household and all the bags go in, all the material goes in the same truck, so they just think that it's going to the landfill. So a lot of work is being done to divert materials, and we certainly could go further into that to maybe to provide some accurate information.
Thank you very much. And I would appreciate a further conversation at some point. And if you could also direct me somewhere to the curriculum and some of the information that's coming into schools, that would be really helpful for me to have a greater understanding of what her task is. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any other questions? We do have a motion regarding funding, and Councillor DeLong, would you be willing to bring forth that motion?
Certainly, thank you. To the Chair and members of the Finance Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend to Council that Municipal Council approve the Region 6 2025-2026 budget, with the municipality's share of the budget being $35,940.35. I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Hubley. All those in favor, please signify by raising their hand. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for coming and for that presentation and for answering those questions. They were very informative. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We're going to move down to 10.1.2, proposed amendments to policy 049, property tax rebate. And I'm going to turn the time over to our Director of Finance, Elena Wenzel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we've had a lot of discussion here at this table about the property tax rebate, and Council did make a motion to increase the thresholds and the rebate amounts and move those forward to the 25-26 budget deliberations. One section of the policy, though, does need to be amended if we are going to fully able to help taxpayers who may have some issues with interest charges if they can't pay their interim tax bill while they're waiting for the rebate to come on the final tax bill. So one of the suggestions from staff was to increase the rebate amounts by between $11 and $13 to include overdue interest charges for those residents. So that would come with a change in the policy, as staff cannot make any adjustments to overdue interest charges because they are legislated in the MGA. Once interest is charged, it forms part of the tax bill. So we are recommending that Section 5 of Policy 49, your property tax rebate policy, allows for staff to adjust that interest between the interim and final tax billing for those taxpayers affected.
Now, we did discuss this a bit during policy and strategy. Are there any questions regarding this policy? No, seeing none. Counselor Bell, would you be willing to bring forth a motion?
Thank you. To the chair and members of the Finance Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend to Council that Municipal Council amend Policy 049, Property Tax Rebate, as presented, and hereby give 7 days' notice of Council's intention to amend at the February 11th, 2025 Council meeting. I so move.
And seconded by Counselor Smith. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion's carried. Thank you very much. We're going to, we have some time, so we're going to move down to planning and development, to 10.2.1, and I'm going to turn the time over to Ms. Schaefer. Did I say that right? Good.
Okay, good morning, Mayor and councilors. We have a request this morning for some private road charges, so I just want to give everyone a bit of background. We do have a private roads bylaw that is designed to help lot owner associations or individuals, when the association can't be formed, collect some road fees so that they can maintain their private roads, and we would apply those to the tax bill. Through our bylaw, we do have application requirements, which includes 50 plus 1% of the property owners to be in favor of proceeding. If the requirements are met, there is an agreement signed with council. The municipality is indemnified from any liability or responsibility. The municipality's only role is collecting the fees on the tax bill. The money is then given back to the association minus a 5% administration fee, and the association is solely responsible for performing the work or hiring the work to be done on their private road. Annually, the association provides the municipality a budget and a resolution which approves the budget to continue with the charges. The charge does become a first lien on the property, so it's collected in the same manner as taxes are. And the agreement stays in place until it's terminated by council, and there are some requirements in the bylaw that would allow for that if it ever came that way. Currently, we have 30 organizations that we do this for. So we have had a request come in from the Homestead Estates Private Road Owners Association. This is to collect the fees on the private portion of Homestead Estates and Virginia Lane. They have submitted the application form with the petitions. 77% of the property owners are in favor of this. So they've completed all the application requirements. And there would be a fee added, obviously, to the budget with a revenue and an expense. And we would retain our admin fee once the money is given back. So if council's in favor, then this should go forward, so we can enter into the agreement and collect the fees this time around for them.
Does anyone have any questions regarding this process? No? We do have a motion. And so, Councillor Reinhardt, I believe this is in your area, so would you be willing to bring that motion?
Yes. To the Chair and members of Finance Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend to Council that Municipal Council levy a maintenance charge within the charge area identified by the Homestead Estates Private Road Owners Association as follows. A uniform amount per lot, with the 2025-26 charge being set at $350 per lot. Subject to an agreement being entered into between the municipality and the Homestead Estates Private Road Owners Association that satisfies the requirements of Section 9 of the Private Roads Bylaw. And I so move.
Do we have a seconder? I'm seconded by Councillor DeLong. Do we have a question?
Madam Chair, I just want to note that I think with this, I will either have an actual or a perceived conflict of interest, so I just simply won't be voting on the matter.
All right, thank you very much for letting us know. Okay, yeah, you'll have to leave the table, thank you. Is there any discussion on this particular motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Motion has carried. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Councillor Burns, for letting us know that, and you're able to return to the table. We are going to go to 10.1.5, proposed area rates, streetlights, and hydrants. And Angela Vino is going to lead us with that. Thank you.
Good morning. As some of you know, part of our budget process, we determine our area rates to get before the budget is approved, to be approved by council. Street lights and hydrants can be easily forecasted based on the nature of the revenues and expenditures. Revenues have been billed for the year and most expenditures have been recorded. Revenues and expenditures for these rates are analyzed and a running total of the account balance is kept from year to year. As surpluses or deficits from prior years are rolled into the next year to be recovered through the area rates. There's a detailed listing of the street lights, and these rates vary year to year depending on the assessed values and the increase in power. The hydrant rates have decreased based on the 2025-26 increase in commercial assessment. So we are asking, it is recommended that the Finance Committee recommend Municipal Council to approve the 2025-26 hydrant rate of 0.1270 per 100 of assessment and the street lights as attached.
Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Burns, you have a question?
If you don't have it right now, it was more just, I'm going to vote yes either way. It was just information on the streetlights in Pine Grove, if you could just let me know, because I can visually in my mind see where some of the streetlights are, but I'd just like to know if I had to talk to any residents, what street or what, where those streetlights would be.
So you want to know where the street lights are?
Yeah, roughly. I just noted on the thing, it said there's about 25 residents affected, so I just wanted to know roughly where I would find those 25 residents. And I suspect that might not be something that someone could tell me right away, that it might be somewhere else, so I'd be very happy with an email after.
Just further through the chair, I think that perhaps maybe we could get a map and we could kind of show you where those are.
That would be perfect. Thank you very much.
Yes, okay.
Councillor Burns, would you be willing to bring forth that motion?
Absolutely. To the Chair and members of Finance Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend to Council that Municipal Council approve the 2025-26 fire hydrant rate of 0.1270 per $100 of assessment in the 2025-2026 street light rates as presented. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Councillor Vino. Are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. And Councillor Moore? Thank you. The motion has been approved. Yeah, we're going to go to the sewer rates now, which is 10.1.6. And we're going to, that's Elena? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So the sewer rates, I'm going to give you some background on the sewer rates because we do have several areas where we have sewer rates that we charge. So in 2014, maybe I should start with this. There are three sewage treatment plants. There's one in New Germany, there's one here in Cookville, and there's one over in Conquerall Bank in the Riverside Shore Drive area that we maintain for our residents. So in 2014, council had approved some area rates for the municipally run sewers with a subsidy from the general tax rate of up to 3 cents per hundred of assessment. The rate structure was based on identifying the full cost of operating the municipal sewer systems and generating revenue through area rates for sewer, and if looking at a subsidy in recognition of the environmental and economic development benefits of the systems. And council agreed that the rates would be reviewed every 5 years. Further to that background was that these sewer rates were getting quite unaffordable for the small amount of residents in the Conquerall Bank and the New Germany areas. And so we tried to do an overall sewer policy at that time to make it a little bit more affordable for all residents going forward, based on the fact that there are economic development benefits of having areas in our municipality that have municipal sewers, and environmental, where we are treating sewage that is going into essentially sensitive areas, waterways. So when we started, in 2017-18, the rates were 73 cents per 100 for properties located in New Germany, Conquerall Bank, Cookville, and Shore Drive, which was the global rate, and 43 cents per 100 of assessment for properties located in Hebville. So in 2019, we did an in-depth analysis of that projection, and we realized that it is meeting the mandate, and we could actually reduce the rates. A lot of it had to do with the capital costs of debentures that had been paid off. So we moved those global rates down to 43 cents per 100 of assessment for properties in New Germany, Conquerall Bank, Cookville, and Shore Drive as a global rate, and 25 cents per $100 assessment for properties located in Hebville. So every year, staff does analyze the costs and revenue annually just to make sure that the rates are adequate based on the financial model that was originally perceived. So in 24-25, we're projecting that the existing rates are working as planned, and is expected result of about 1.8 cents per 100 of a subsidy. So it's well within the 3 cents that council had originally envisioned that they might have to inject into the sewer systems. So we have modeled the next 5-year cycle financially, and looking at the Cookville wastewater treatment plant, knowing that there's a large capital project there that will result in some borrowing. We believe that, based on that, some projections on costs and increase in assessment over the next 5 years, that the subsidy may increase to about 2.8 cents over the 5-year total, looking in the future. However, in the first year, in 25-26, there's actually going to be, it won't be that high. It'll be closer back down to that 1.8%. So what staff are recommending is that the sewer rates do not change, and that the Finance Committee approves those rates for the 25-26 budget.
Does anybody have any questions for Elena regarding? Wonderful. Oh, you do?
Well,
Okay.
I don't, it's not a question, but I want to raise it as something I think we should think about. Because I look ahead to this, I had, prior to last few months, I didn't really think a lot about sewer. I have a septic, and, but now looking at the numbers, I realize how much and how expensive wastewater treatment is. And I also recognize that there's lots of innovation in handling sewage and septic. And I'm just wondering if this is something we should think about. Because what we are doing is, as a general tax base, we are subsidizing a portion of our community. And I'm not opposed to that, but I think we should think about, is there a better way to do this? And just like a very rough calculation, if you think a septic might cost $20,000 to put in, maybe 25, we have a pretty good idea of the 300 and some odd that went down in the river along the river cleanup. And we used a number of different newer septic system solutions to accommodate the treatment of septic along the riverbank. I think about the septic system, sewage system in Conqueror Bank, and there's 40 or 50 homes on that. And if we put in individual septics for them at 20,000, it would be about 800,000, which is, you know, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I just look at the cost annually, and we're going to have a new school in New Germany, which will require, I expect, some kind of system. I wonder if we shouldn't be thinking about, are there alternatives to the systems that we have in place now that could, in the long run, offer a saving to all the taxpayers, not only the homeowners, but also to the general tax population, as we look at the subsidy we're putting in at almost 3 cents over time. Would this not be something then we could find alternatives to the current systems that might save us money? These would be capital investments, but if we're thinking 5 to 10 years out, then maybe newer systems and newer thinking around what might accommodate a small population base like the one in Conqueror Bank. And New Germany's larger, but I think it's only 100 units. No, it's more than that. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's bigger, but it's still not huge. Would it not be wise for us to think about some alternatives to what we're currently doing? I just raise that as an issue.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Do we want to give direction? Like what would we want to do in this particular, because, yes, go ahead, Councillor Hubley.
I would like to know if staff could bring us back some more information on what the mayor has discussed.
Yeah.
Something that we could look at long-term, down the road, just information purposes, so we know if it's possible.
Yep. And do we need a motion for that, or just giving direction verbally?
I think a motion would be good. You're asking for additional analysis outside of what had been planned. And we have the capital budget hard upon us. So this is something that we'd be looking at after this year's capital budget. Just directly to the mayor's point, the size of the system is going to dictate whether or not it's something that's worth exploring. The two sort of thought processes that led to the support from the general rate were environmental protection, which can be achieved regardless of the type of system, and then the potential for increased density and economic activity, which can't be achieved the same way. So again, you're looking at size, and you're right to point out Conqueror Bank is a very small system in a more rural setting, so that's likely where analysis would begin. But if the committee is generally supportive of looking into that, then yes, we'd like a motion, and then staff would begin that work after the capital budget.
Mayor McLean-Weil, would you like to put a motion on the floor regarding that?
I would, only if there's general agreement that we should look at this. I just, it was very rough thinking around the whole idea. And when I look at a subsidy that everyone is, and I have heard this, we've all heard it. Why should, I pay for my own septic? Why should I subsidize the whole thing? And we understand, I think generally people are aware of the need for environmental protection, and I'm certainly not opposed to it. But I think what we do need to do is be responsible in terms of using taxpayer money and finding the correct and more current, more modern, because I know there's been lots of, I'm sure, with all of the technology and the issues around environmental protection that have been surfacing over the last number of years, that there have been innovations that we should be looking at. And maybe we'll realize that it is cost effective to look at some of them. But if we don't ask those questions and dig into it a bit, we won't know. And so I think this is a step forward. I will be supporting our current, the current support for the costs that we have in the system now, because, we can't abandon that until we have something that's constructive to move towards. but I can put that motion on the floor, that we ask, I would move that we ask staff to investigate alternative wastewater treatment that might accommodate small numbers of our population, and look at what some cost-effective systems might be that we could consider in long-term planning.
Do I have a seconded by Councillor Hubley? Councillor Moore, I do believe you have a question, and is it regarding this particular motion, or will it be regarding the information that Elena has given us?
The current motion, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, I'm fat. I got vibes in my head here. I do not disagree with the mayor. I think it is something that can be looked at. We do have, and I could be wrong, but I think it's over 200 hookups here in New Germany. And I'm not quite sure if it isn't 220 to 240, but like I said, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But I agree, long term, it's probably something that will be viable, because I think of the money that was put into the infiltration of the old pipes that are in the ground here in New Germany, and all the money that had to be put into that to make sure of, it was leakage and that kind of stuff. So I think long term, I agree with the mayor that something should be looked at.
Councillor DeLong.
Thank you. I agree with the motion in principle. If we're asking staff to analyze this, one of the things that I would appreciate knowing more about is, given that we finance wells and that type of sustainable building practice in our residents, I'm wondering if septic is something that we could also offer a financing program for.
Anyone else with any other comments or thoughts? Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I don't think there's anyone else around this table that's had more discussion or tried to have more discussion about on-site wastewater treatment plants for individual lots and those that are operated by the municipal system. I fought a couple of years ago for a global rate that would be representative of the cost based on a single system per site, as people have individual properties and pay for their own, divided by a 15 or 20-year shelf life to come up with a figure to see what is representative of a cost per family. And I'm in favor of still a global rate per household or living unit. I still don't think that when we're looking at the investment that we're making here at Exit 12, and we'll be making in other years, that we really have the formula right yet, because these individual apartment buildings being priced per assessment of the building may not be the true figure if we did the billing based on the number of units, because 4 people living in an apartment may make the same amount of gray water as 4 people living in a house in Hebville. So we have to look at what is a reasonable rate, and it's not necessarily should not be expected of someone who is living in Baker's Settlement to be subsidizing a wastewater treatment plant in Concrell Bank. I agree with that, and I do know that it needs to be a discussion. But the problem that came here a few years ago is that we had one wastewater treatment plant that needed to be upgraded, and if that cost would have been passed on to that one community, it would have put a ridiculous rate that was actually higher than the rate of assessment per 100 for the property tax. That's why they looked for different options. We came out with the global rate, for which was fairer to most people. But what happened there is there was 2 or 3 businesses that were being assessed a higher amount because they may have had 1 or 2 washrooms in the building for their staff or for public, but weren't generating near the same amount of gray water as someone in a personal house, but yet they were paying a higher amount based on their commercial rate. So the council of the day opted for this system. So at the time, it gave my citizens a good rate. I wouldn't want to vote against that, but I wasn't the author of it. So I have heard over and over for people who don't live in that particular geographical area that's getting the benefit that it might not be fair. So I can't disagree with the mayor. We do need to have the discussion, but it's a discussion that needs to be wide, looking at every aspect of how, if you can provide assistance one time for the people who need to change or come off of a central system for their own. But again, there may be some properties that might not be big enough because at the time they were being serviced by a central system. Therefore, the square footage of the property was allowed to be, they were allowed to issue a deed for a building permit that is smaller than what would be the normal size. So how do we accommodate these individuals? So what I'm saying, it's going to be a long discussion. So I'm in favor of the motion, but I want you to understand that by saying I'm in favor of the motion, I'm actually looking at hardship that may come upon a number of my citizens or a number of Councillor Moore's citizens, but there has to be ways to fix this. I'm willing to talk.
Just hold for a moment. We have Councillor Brooks first, if you don't mind. No, you're fine? Okay. Mayor
Yeah,
McLean-Well?
I think the issue that Councillor Bell raises is a separate issue from this, is that I was just talking about systems and researching that. But I do think your point is well taken, that given the development here in the Osprey Village area and the concentration here, that you're right in saying that we probably need to look at that assessment level and the subsidy level and the costing and usage in a different way here than we do in perhaps our other areas. So I think it's a separate issue, the costing of this, from the actual systems that we might look at. I think there's 2 parts here. Regardless, I think we're going to have, over the next 4 years, some conversations about wastewater treatment, given that we're going to be looking at how our planning and our development expands in this area, as well as perhaps in the Hebbville area and Dayspring and the surrounding area to the town. So I think this is going to be on our radar for a while, but I see what you're saying a little bit differently because it's dealing with a particular costing around how we charge people out for sewage rate. I think it's 2 different issues, both of which we'll have conversations about.
And our deputy CAO has written down your thoughts as well as the mayor's. And right now we have a motion on the floor. And regarding the mayor's suggestion and all those that are in, you wanted to talk first? Okay.
Just to provide a little clarity to make sure it's clear for staff. So we have taken notes on what the discussion is, the mention about septic financing program and issues around lot size for sure. So just to be clear, we're looking at a motion that would direct, the Finance Committee would be directing staff to conduct preliminary research on alternative wastewater technologies for existing smaller central systems and report back to the Policy and Strategy Committee in 2025.
Sounds like a plan. All those in favor? Councillor Moore, wonderful, thank you. And we have Counselor Brooks. Would you be willing to bring forth the motion of 10.1.6, which was regarding the sewer rates as they are now?
To the Chair and members of the Finance Committee, I move that the Finance Committee recommend to Council that Municipal Council approves the proposed sewer rates at 43 cents per $100 of assessment for the global rate and 25 cents per $100 of assessment for Hebville, and further that these rates become effective April 1st, 2025. I so move.
Kathy has seconded?
Yes.
Okay, great. All those in favor? Kathy, motion has carried. Thank you very much. We are going to have a recess of, it's adjournment. What do we call it? Recess, adjournment?
We're gonna take a break. We're gonna come
Oh,
back.
take
and
a
we'll go in
break.
camera.
Okay, we're calling it a break. We're taking a break for 10 minutes, and then we're going in camera for our in-camera discussion.
Kathy, check your email.
Thank you.
Oh, your text message.